And oh my, we're going to talk about Lori Alexander today, somebody that I rarely talk about, and I'd even stopped mentioning it in LQ. That's why I'm wearing my freshwater pearls. I want to have pearls to clutch today while we talk about this. Okay, if you don't know who I am, I'm Suzanne Titkemeyer. I used to run a blog on Pathos, and there I called it a blog instead of a daily column, called No Longer Quivering, where I talked about quiverful cultural enforcers, which I'm going to do today. This is not a deep, exhaustive dive, but this is all of my thoughts on this. And these are just my thoughts and opinions. Do your own research. Look and see what you think about Lori. Yes, T King, I am wearing the pearls to clutch. Hey, Nitwit. Hey, Karma Kid. Saturday. Spicy, crazy. Oh, Felon Peas. She blocked me ages ago. And there are times when I discover like new types of social media, and I go in there and I look for her, and she has me blocked before I even begin. Hey, Brenda Lee and Carolyn, she has me blocked. So she pre-blocks me all the time. And I know that I get under her skin because she had her husband try to contact my husband to tell me to back off. And the timing, yes, the transformed wife, that's the name of her blog. And the name of her book, The Power of the Transformed Wife. And we're going to jump into all of that in just a second. Don't bully or harass anybody connected with her at all. And do all the YouTube things if you feel like it. Hit like, subscribe, click the bell notification. Okay, let's dive right in. Okay, if you don't know who Lori Alexander is, she runs a blog by the name of The Transformed Wife. She has a book that she has written called The Power of the Transformed Wife. She has a couple other like Bible study kind of books she's written, but they're real thin and there's not much there. Basically, what Lori has been pushing for years is submit to your husband, not just submit, over submit. Submit in such a way that is disgraceful and disgusting. We're not even talking about serving him dinner or even serving him dinner with a smile. We're talking about not feeling your own feelings, telling people to stop feeling their own feelings, and all of that. Hey, Bermuda. She has really taken the cake for probably the worst quiverful enforcer I've ever seen because she doesn't have any grace for anyone. No grace. There's no grace. She's always putting women down and saying horrible things to and about women. And she would make me crazy when I had NLQ. She would say these horrible things. And you would quote her saying these horrible things. And then her stands would come out and would say ugly things. And it was just like, can you not understand that I'm just sharing her own words and I'm telling you the meaning behind those words in a way that you've never heard before? If I had to sum her up in a phrase, it would be 5 minutes in lube. She tells you to have sex with your husband every single time he requests. And it's because it's just 5 minutes in lube. Well, girlfriend, if it's only taken 5 minutes, somebody's doing something wrong. Because I myself usually submit to that, even though sometimes I'll have weeks like this. It's like, no, I'm having bad asthma. I will help you have some fun, but we're not doing the flying Walinda brothers upside down and in weird moves. We're not doing any of that because there's nothing in it for me. When I'm that sick, ain't no fun happening. And I'm not even going to pretend to have happening fun. I'm not going to be smiling and faking it, where it seems like Lori seems to indicate that that's what she wants. He's got a hand, use it. You got it, Nitwit. You got it, you got it, you got it. So, and plus the ways that you could be helping him, Lori calls it sin. So, no, I hear you. Go ahead, bossy. Put your pillowcases on. When Lori first started writing, she really wasn't that bad. But as time has gone on, her writing has taken some awful turns. I quit talking about her NLQ for a twofold reason right before I quit. And I haven't talked to her about her on YouTube much because of the same twofold reasons. Number one, her brain tumor came back. So I was thinking, yes, she definitely is a crackhead in her own weird way. So I was thinking, I'm not going to pick on somebody who has a brain tumor. And I started wondering how many of her truly awful sayings are brain tumor related and how many of them actually are hers. So I backed off. And the irony of backing off was the second I did, 2 days later, Ken tried to contact my husband on Facebook to tell him to control me and make me quit defaming his wife. Well, here's the thing. If you take somebody's own words and you share them and you break down what your understanding of their words is, there's no defamation of character there. You're just expressing an opinion, and that's perfectly legal. There's nobody to say you can't say, okay, I'm reading this and what I'm getting is X, Y, and Z. So the brain tumor made me back off, not Ken. When Ken did that, I was like, damn, why did you have to have a brain tumor? Why now? Because I can't say anything or it'd be me picking on the lady with the brain tumor. And there was a lot to pick on there. Somebody had slipped me a document that Ken had written. It was like 18 pages about how he and Lori had finally gotten on the same page. And it was horrific. It was just a horrific thing. And I don't know how Lori didn't snap and attack him when I started reading about what all went down, because I would have been saying, hold it there a minute, bub. So anyway, long story short, she's just gotten worse. The second reason I quit talking about her is her supporters are some of the worst people I've run across. They really are a basket of deplorables. Hillary Clinton's old saying, a basket filled with deplorables. And there's nothing that Lori did that was more deplorable than when she, right before COVID, she hooked up with Anthony Beach Muscles Johnson. If you don't know who he is a failed lifestyle kind of working out coach to get beach muscles. He tried to be a pickup artist influencer, and he kind of failed at that too. So his new thing is this whole incel, make men and make women great again, make men great again, 21 conferences. He has these conferences that pushes this extremist masculinity, a hyper masculinity that is so hyper masculinity, it almost comes across as I don't want to say the word homosexual. It comes across as more homosexual, worshiping bods than it does anything to do with masculinity. You know, my idea of masculinity is my husband, who was in military intelligence for years in the military, who ran every year in his 40s with the guys in his unit in the marathons and would smoke the rear ends of the 18 and 19-year-old kids that he was serving with because they couldn't even do a basic run. The guy who stayed outside of a sewer storm drain to help fish out kittens for a week. The guy I have seen that is not worried about his masculinity in any way, shape, or form. And he knows that I'm going to give him pushback sometimes when he does those things, if he goes too far. I mean, that's just my job as his wife, to keep him in line. And I always say that it's not really true. It's just to say, hey, you might want to think about that. Like this morning, he was screaming about his cell phone. He's having various problems with it. And I said for like the 100,000th time, I said, maybe you should put it on lock before you stick it in your pocket. And so anyway, we all have our faults and foibles. And I think that that is a more reasonable way than to pretend that your spouse is perfectly 100% perfect all the time, and all you do is smile and wait on them hand and foot, which seems to be the Lori Alexander thing. Well, here's where it gets funny with Lori Alexander. She had a maid. She had a maid. So she didn't even do housework. She may be doing housework now, but she had a maid for years. She had a tutor come in and homeschool her children. She's living in a wealthy San Diego subdivision. And every now and then somebody contacts me and claims to be a neighbor of hers. I hear the most horrific tales. But I don't share them because I'm not writing about her. I'm not even mentioning her in my book at all. Some of the other people get mentions. I'm not mentioning her. Why? Well, I think she's trifling, and I think that her reach is a lot less than what she claims. So she has attached herself to Anthony Beach Muscles Johnson and his conference. She was supposed to speak at his Make Women Great Again conference, but she ended up canceling because a lot of her followers kept saying, you can't do this, you can't do this. This dude is involved with the pickup artist community. He's not a Christian. He's done and said a lot of awful things. What kind of awful things? Well, his last newsletter someone sent me, and it was a recent one. It was something like how to sleep with 1,600 women. You know, if you're a good Christian man, why would you want to be doing that? Wouldn't you want to be respecting a woman saying yes or no or whatever? I would think you would do that. So there's a pastor that has aligned himself with this guy. Like I said, I just can't get over it. Anthony did interview her for 2 hours, and she was impressed by that. Okay, I'm going to throw this out there. Lori, I will interview you live here on my channel for 2 hours, and I will only ask you softball questions and let you have your say. I won't be ugly. I'll smile and nod and get along with you. But I want to interview you too. And I'll do it for 2 hours here if necessary. And I won't even give you a villain's edit. I'll let you have your little say, even though the next day I would probably take apart all your arguments. Oh, yes, Bermuda. So there it is what it is. Let me read you a couple of her recent tweets that are just blowing my mind. She likes to talk about sex sometimes. Here's one. Having a great married sex life isn't a promise God gives to us. It is not the be all and end all in this life. Believing and obeying God are what matters. If you struggle in this area, seek out the advice of a godly, wise woman, but don't let it steal your joy. Oddly enough, I agree with her there. Find somebody you know that's older, that has been married a long time, that you think is a joyous person. Don't find some sad sack and ask them about this. Find somebody who's joyous and ask them, hey, how should I be handling this? How should I be thinking about this? Because it's not actually bad advice. It's just as she goes on later, she makes it bad advice. And she goes on to say, sure, it's great to have a good sex life, but life is far from perfect and filled with trials to make us more like Christ. Seek only to glorify him in everything. Obey his commands and trust him. Don't deprive your husband and seek to please yourself. Oh my, there is a lot to unpack there. Suffering is not what God uses to try and force us towards him. Any deity that uses pain, fear, agony, suffering is a slimy little, you know what, shit. I don't happen to view God that way. View him very different. And I think that sex is a glorious gift. Is it better if you do it when you're married? Well, probably, but I'm not going to even make that kind of division. I just say be responsible about it and be legal age. That's really it. It's between you and what you think faith is. So she's been saying all of this. She always says this stuff. She has said that a good sex life is 5 minutes in lube. No, 5 minutes in lube is a bad sex life. 5 minutes in lube is cheating yourself out of fun. If you're having the kind of sex life for 5 minutes in lube is what you do, then I suggest you go to a sex therapist. And there are some. There are even some Christian ones. Because it's not the sex, it's the intimacy that's the problem when you get to that level. Intimacy, sex and intimacy are linked. And intimacy in marriage is a very important thing. It's what makes marriages happy. Maybe not even the sex, but the intimacy. And a lot of times you can't have the intimacy without the sex. Oh, Queenie Sheba, hey. Yeah, and I'm talking about Laura Alexander. So we have Lori sitting on high in her fancy McMansion, a large one in San Diego, had a tutor, had a housekeeper, didn't even cook, didn't do any of that. Now she's doing all that, and she's telling everybody else to do it, even though she didn't do it. Hypocrite. Oh, okay. So here we have, let me get to the rest, because there were some other things that were just like, I could not believe she was saying. Here's one of them today. Women using foul language is not feminine at all. And God commands us not to let any unwholesome words or foul language be spoken by us. Our words should be filled with truth, grace, and goodness, becoming a godly and feminine woman of God in every area of your life. I don't even know what to say there. There are times when it's appropriate to use languages, even languages like that. Queen of Sheba, I'm in trouble too because I love colorful vulgarities, but I have enough sense not to use them in the wrong place. In fact, I had to laugh. Last night I was listening to Steve McRae's late live stream, and my husband was up in the bed, and he was verklimping and saying Joel Osteen-like things, and he was not liking Steve because Steve was using foul language, and I had to turn to my husband and say, do you understand why? People just don't start throwing the F-bomb because they're trying to be hip or happening or anything. When people start using that level of language, a lot of times it indicates a frustration with whatever it is going on. So it just blows my mind that she has got all these rules for thee, but not for me, even though I don't know if she's ever said those things. Oh, here we are. Here's all the beach muscle ones. How can beach muscles, who is not a Christian, not all capitalized, love what I teach, interview me for 2 hours on his YouTube channel, and ask me to speak at his conference every year? Yet many Christian women despise what I teach. Is it because he clearly sees the harm that feminism has done and they can't? Oh, heaven forfend. Oh my goodness. That is not it at all. Not it at all. Jiffy Lube for an oil change. That's exactly what her sex life sounds like. Jiffy Lube for an oil change. Anthony Beach Muscles is teaching this incel hypermasculinity. Hey, Norway, greetings back from Costa Rica. Is teaching a type of hypermasculinity that doesn't even exist. It does exist in some factions of this hyper fundagelicalism. I'm just going to call it that. Some quiverful men preach it. Hey, nobody. One of the guys that preaches it the most I've seen is Tim Bailey. But if you oppose Bailey in any way and say, hey, now wait a minute, that's not what that scripture means. He starts whining and crying. He made the mistake. One time he did an article, and I did like I always do. I quote the horrible parts and say, hey, wait a minute, I don't think Jesus would approve, and I break it down and why. And rather than asking me to reconsider or to remove it or anything like that, he immediately went to my editor and complained that I was defaming him. When my editor said, but all Suzanne did was take your words, quote them back at you, and break down how she thought you were wrong. It was her opinion. He started trying to tell my editor how to do my job, how to do his job, and that he had to control me. And all this whiny, weak, wimpy, masculine stuff. So he's always talking about how great men are. And then the next thing you know, he's writing a piece about how skinny jeans on men are a sin, how the man bun is a sin. Things that it's like, do you understand that Jesus probably maybe had a ponytail or a bun or long hair, and he was wearing robes? So when they say those things, I'm just like jaw dropped. I wish I had saved those emails because they were just so incredibly bizarre. I would have shared them, but sadly I did not. So I'm going to try to pull up his summit because I want to be able to tell you which pastor it is who's preaching at this thing. And he won't show me. We are rebuilding the patriarchy one father at a time. This special live event, now in its 4th year, become the best father you could be for yourself and your children. Said men featuring 100% mansplaining and nonstop masculine self-improvement. Mansplaining palooza. Oh my word. So he is straying into the good old Christian patriarch community too. He's got a patriarch convention. He's got the 22 convention, Make Women Great Again. I'm looking to see who his speakers are because I know he's been after Lori Alexander to speak. And she has not. Interesting. He doesn't have listed who any of his speakers are that I can find. Purge the beta male within and become an alpha male. He's got the cuck boys speaking. That ought to tell you something right there. She wants your toxic masculinity. And that is woke, the new order. And he's got pictures of the pussycat hats on gas masks. Okay. So he doesn't have any of the speakers listed whatsoever. To attend in person is $1,699. To attend virtually, it's $425. So I want you to think about this for a minute. Lori Alexander has aligned herself with someone who teaches basically the whole masculine, I'm going to call it BS. I'm going to call it what it is. It's BS. This is something that a bunch of guys who are beta males, who are trying to figure out how to be alpha males, who are the guys that make up the incels, that is who he has got this thing aimed at. And I don't even know what to tell you what kind of women there would be. Now, I know Lori is not speaking at this thing, but she is aligned herself with this. I don't tell you something about her morality. Between that and her Jiffy Lube sex comment of 5 minutes in lube, it ought to tell you a whole lot. So with beach muscles, it's not how to defeat feminism conference. It's how to get monkeypox conference. Yes, and get COVID, because let us not forget, COVID has gone nowhere. Here in Costa Rica, I think I looked the other day and it was something like 16,000 new cases a day. They were freaking out. We had 100 new cases a day in the country, but now we're having 16,000 a day. And it's like, we're open for business. I just don't get it. This world is going nuts. What's up is down. What's down is, yeah. So, sorry for our truckers. I feel sorry for them. Hmm. She's a mini transformed wife in training. Um, his words alone give SDE energy and hot dog water vibes. Hot dog water vibes. That is the perfect description of some of these guys. These are the kind of guys that live on hot dogs and cereal alone in their bachelor pad. If bachelor chow was a thing, they'd be eating it. And I didn't know quite what to do. Last year, my son, or 2 years ago, took a detour through incel land. And I was pretty horrified because, you know, his sisters and I are nothing like that. My mother is nothing like that. She may have her foibles like we all do, but she's not like that. And none of us are the kind of over hyper feminist ball breakers that these guys are talking about at all. At all. So with Lori, the best I can figure, and I'm about to give you my armchair psychology, which that and $5 will buy you a cup of regular, it'll buy you Americano at Starbucks. So it's not worth a lot. Through Lori's writings, particularly through her book, The Power of the Transformed Wife, which I wrote a whole series on that I'll link to at Pathos, because I just took her book and I just broke down each chapter, everything that was wrong with it, what was wrong with it in light of the Bible, all of that. And like some of it was just so egregiously wrong. Like she did a chapter on financial health for the family, and she had exactly 2 points. She had 2 points. First point, buy used and save the difference. Douglas told us that one. Second point was don't use credit cards. So I had to write a response to that chapter that was so long, it was stupid. I was thinking, how can I even start to begin to break this down? How to responsibly use financial health and finances to help your family. It's not that. None of this is what that is. This is not it. So I had to explain how to use credit cards to actually build wealth, how to save, how to do various things, how to use various financial instruments. And I think one of the best things a woman could do is to make sure they have credit in their own name. I don't care if you're a stay-at-home wife, you should be able to get a little store credit card with a few dollars on it to use for yourself. And what you do is you charge a few little things on it and you pay them off right away. And you do that every couple of months. And guess what? That will build your credit so that if, God forbid, your husband dies, you have credit. You have your own credit. You have your own credit history. You're not starting down at the bottom of the deck. And the thing is, even most employers these days require you to have a decent credit score. It's one of the things they look at. So there's so many things you have to look at and think about that she just glossed right over, like the entitled rich white woman that she is. Nobody, you just summed it up perfectly. So Lori is just a piece of work, and I don't pay her any mind. I don't even follow her anymore. I don't read her stuff. Occasionally somebody will put something on my timeline and I'll look at it and be going, oh my word, that's crazy, because now that I'm no longer writing for NLQ every day, I'm no longer quivering. I'm not scrutinizing every word coming off of her fingertips. If I see it, fine. And I have a group on Facebook that's mostly inactive. I don't do much with it anymore, called Lori Alexander Banned Me. we had a lot of members. I had to lock the group, put the group on lockdown, and scrutinize who all was members and remove anybody who wasn't posting because cereal in my teeth. Because Lori and Lori's little stands kept coming in there and doing screen caps. And all we were talking about was the toxicness of the things she was posting. We weren't saying anything about her as a human being. It was just, oh my word, Jiffy Lube sex, you know, planning to only use credit to build wealth, but now I'm having to buy necessities with it because of inflation, but have a work at home possibility, thank goodness. And that's why you need to have credit, because when those things happen where you need to use it, you got it. Yep, she is pretty nosy. So she's beyond that. And what's really funny to me is I still know people who are part of her super secret Facebook group, and they still send me crap about her. And I just want to say, I don't care. I'm not using any of that. She says the most awful things in her secretive, I've always called it the roach nest. And I think there's something to that because it's all the really bad ideas are there. The beat the children until they capitulate is there. The tale of the Christmas where her children got up and unwrapped the presents before her husband and her got up. And then she started spanking them and locked them outside the house for a couple hours. I mean, there's tales like that. That was there. And every time I think, well, she's another one kind of like Katie Joy. Every time I think, there is nothing this woman could say that would surprise me, she's kind of like, not hold my beer because she doesn't drink. Hold my organic whatever. And then she goes for it. Basically, everything she espouses is against women. It's anti-woman. There's no love. There's no mercy. There's no nothing there. It's submit, 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 submit. And it does make me furious too. That's why I was writing about her so hard for some. What does their kids? I am super strict, but what kid could stop themselves from opening presents beneath the tree? Exactly. It is one of the most messed up things I've ever seen. Hold my KJV Bible. That's a good one because that would fit her. Hold my KJV Bible. And she thinks the pearls are awesome. She's promoted the pearls in there. Take that piece of plastic plumbing line and spank your child until they give in. She promotes that. She thinks that's the way to discipline children, even though we have had neighbors of hers that have messaged me that have said that neither Ken nor the kids will allow her alone with their kids. And I don't know how true that is. It might just be one of the spiteful rumors going around. But when I heard it, I was like, oh my goodness, I don't even want to think about that. Because you love your children and you love your grandchildren and you don't do those things to them at all. And loving your children, sometimes it does mean that you have to take a step back from them. I have had times in my life I did do that. And then I've had to have times where I pressed forward and insisted, hey, we're not doing that. It just really depends. Locking your kid out of the house on Xmas here could actually end up in their death. Exactly. Not to mention the trauma. All I want to do is hold my little human on Xmas. Same. And play with the toys. I was allowed to open presents under the tree until all the visiting relatives were awake and ready, usually after lunch. Oh, nobody, I'm sorry. Ken won't allow Cray Cray to be along with the grands. Good. That's what I've heard. I don't know how true that is. That could be just some isolated rumor that they're floating. I don't think that she's super well liked by the neighbors as far as I can tell. You're right. My heart breaks for those children and what they carried away too. I just think about that for Christmas. Is Ken really one of those husbands? Bossy? No. He seems to really give in to her a lot, I think, from everything I've seen in his writings. And he doesn't seem real domineering and hateful. It seems like he does really love her and have feelings for her, and he wants to protect her. I had to go lock myself in the bathroom, but I've never took my human out of her home. Exactly. There are times when I've locked myself in the bathroom. I tell people that all the time. When my kids were little, if I got to where I wanted to harm them, I would lock myself in the bathroom for a few minutes until I was calmer because they don't need to see that. Oh, my sangria. I wish I could drink. I used to love a good, refreshing adult beverage occasionally. Apparently, he has more sense than Lori and won't let her be with the grands. He seems more level-headed than her. I don't, like I said again, I don't know how true that is. I've heard so many rumors about her through the years, there's no telling. Just like I've heard rumors about Ken, they like to say that he has messaged a lot of women to have coffee with them. I think it's just to discuss things to try and make them believe the way Lori does, but I don't know. But I have seen those messages too that he's like, let's meet for coffee so I can tell you what to do. Well, I don't drink anymore because I'm on my second cup of coffee of the day. I figured he'd be on our show more if he was really into the stuff. I think that he just doubles down on everything she's saying, her right to say it. And I'm going to absolutely say that here. Under the First Amendment, Lori has every right to spew this stuff. And it is stuff, just like we have every right to totally reject it. I think the funniest misconception that her and her husband have about me is that I'm not a Christian. And I kind of laughed about that because I will say that when I left my quiverful church, how I'm viewing Christianity is a very different way than I ever did before. And I mean, if you look at the way Jesus himself was in the New Testament, and it wasn't in an ugly way. It isn't to tear things up. And here comes my husband. Except to overturn the money changers, the people who were using the word of God for that. Oh, she can think and talk about it, but if I catch Lori beating a kid, that's criminal, and I will turn her heart in without a second thought. Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. She is just one of those people that when you see her doing that stuff, you just wonder. Hi from the Corn Coast, Jim. Yeah, he's here. I don't know what he's doing here, so I'm probably have to go and see what he's doing back so early. He left like 40 minutes ago to work, and I don't know what in the heck he's doing back. Underscore. I can't type your name on my iPad keyboard. Oh, I hate it. I'm sorry. Sometimes I wonder if it's because of her beliefs, a whole list of things. Oh, but you're right. I wonder what he forgot. Or maybe they're not having class today. We did have a weird Costa Rican holiday in the middle of the week. We had not in the middle of the week, beginning of the week, we had Mother's Day. It's supposed to be on Sunday, but everybody and their brother takes Monday off. Everything was shut down. I don't get it, but there it is. There it is. So now you've heard me rant about Lori Alexander, just so you don't have to. One of the things I don't miss about NLQ is I don't miss submitting myself to reading this nonsense. I haven't looked at her blog in forever, just like I haven't looked at Tim Bailey's blog, Warnhorn. I have skipped all of that. I no longer have to read what John Piper says. I don't have to do any of that. Prairie, I figured it was because of stalkers. Dude literally had previous stalking convictions. Oh my goodness. And that was one of those things where I was kind of hesitant to ever speak about Lori too, because she has got some very scary people that follow her. Von Oman. Now there is a blast from the past, and I wish I had his book. Let them marry. Yes, yes, yes. And I have to laugh because I got mentioned one time on the Young Turks show and on about Vaughn and some of the things he was saying because this guy wrote with was sharing this awful photo of an apple tree and saying that girls are like apples. Well, I started explaining about that because I lived in apple country. I was familiar with the biggest employer in the Winchester area, which happens to be White House apples. And if you grow apples, you know very well that it is not just beautiful fruit sitting in a tree with the farmer protecting. It is a whole lot more than that. He's going to have to. He's going to have the underage trafficking conference, which I know that Prairie. I put a kibosh on that. I personally put a kibosh on that along with Vicki Garrison. We managed to get that shut down. It's one of my finer moments, I think, getting him shut down, driving him underground because he was charging, I don't know, $1,200 a head for a family to go match up their underage kids together. Like I said, I am not proud of everything I did at No Longer Quivering, but getting his marriage meat market shut down was one of them. Going after Steven Anderson when his sons had committed crimes of a sexual nature was another. That gives off straight up Handmaid's Tale vibes. Yes, it does. It does. It's just crazy. Why anybody thinks that teenage girls need to be married is ridiculous. Makes me want to scrub my skin off with Brillo, let kids be kids. Exactly. And I leave you with that thought today. These good patriarch types, these beach muscle types, I believe in marrying girls off when they're 15, 16 years old. Vaughn went farther than that. He said as soon as you got your period, you were ready. I got my period at 11. The only thing I was ready to do at 11 was continue to play with my Barbies and to listen to Osmond Brother records. That was it. Teen boys don't need to be married either. You're absolutely right. So, yeah, that's just something that's utterly ridiculous. Even back in the 1800s, nobody was marrying off their 12-year-old girls. They were still waiting at least till 16, 17, 18 years old. I mean, only world I've seen like that is Game of Thrones world. My mom had a girl in her kindergarten class. Oh my goodness. They say it's because of all the chemicals on our food. I don't know why, but it seems like it's been a thing where the age of girls receiving their first period has gone down, down, down. Okay, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and go. Avoid Lori Alexander if you can. Definitely avoid Anthony Beach Muscles Johnson because there's just so much wrong, and it's a whole huge ball of wrongness there going on that I don't have time to explain how bad he is. You guys have a wonderful day.